Next thing I'm going to go over is 2.4 marginal analysis. I skipped 2.3 simply because most of that was just knowing how to bring negatives to the top or bottom to make them positive again. I'm just not going to go over that. If anybody really has any questions about it, let me know. I'll be happy to help you figure it out. You really just flip it. If it's on the bottom, you put it to the top and take away the negative sign for the exponent. If it's on top and it's negative, you put it on the bottom and remove the negative sign for the exponent. That's it. That's the only thing you can remove the negative from them. And then it went over a little bit of radicals, but again, I think I've covered that enough in some of the other videos that I don't really need to do that. If I'm wrong, I'll be happy to add another video. But I wanted to cover things like marginal analysis because I think they're a little more difficult for people to remember. So yeah, we're skipping to 2.4 because I think that's what we're going to need the most of. Okay. If my iPad can, there we go, catch up. All right. So, marginal analysis is probably, for any of us business majors or business related majors, the most important part of it to understand, even though we'll have some program like Excel or something else that will basically do all of this for us. We still need to have the understanding of it, and so this part is the most relevant for us and why it was the easiest for me to understand without help. But you still have to understand derivatives, and that was the part I needed help on when I was still doing it as we went. So, here are the important notes. Price function equals demand function. These two are pretty much used interchangeably in all of our stuff, and possibly elsewhere too. Sometimes they will give you one, and sometimes they will give you the other, and sometimes they will give you both. They mean the same thing. Don't freak out over it. Make sure, though, that it is a lowercase p. Lowercase p is price. Capital P means something completely different, which I'll get to in a minute. Okay? All right. Revenue is equal to the demand function times X. Okay? That's all you do for revenue. Demand times X. I'm going to bring up my notes so I don't tell y'all anything else. Okay. So cost function is pretty much always just going to be given to you as cost function. So there's not really anything to tell you there. Profit function, however, capital P, notice, is going to equal your revenue function minus your cost function. Oops. So in order to find some of these things, you'll have to figure out other parts to it. So, a couple more important things. If you have the letter, and I'm going to use I'm going to use the revenue function as the example, because a lot of times, or actually, I'll use C because marginal cost is pretty frequent. So, C prime of X is your marginal cost. And I'll spell it all the way out on this one. Anytime you see one of these letters with prime, it's marginal. or if you don't know how to notate something, marginal equals the letter prime of x, or the amount if it tells you that. And then if you have c with the line over it of x, that equals your average cost. The same is true if you have R with a line over it or the capital P with a line over it. These are the same across the board. And then if you have, I'll scroll down just a touch. If you have C prime with the line over it, that's going to be your marginal, I'm not going to spell it out all the way this time, average cost. Same thing across the board, every single time. The way that I like to think of it is when you have these two symbols right here, when you have these two, you do it in order of the symbols to solve the problem. So if they ask you for marginal, average, anything, you're going to find average first and then your marginal, because you're going to do this average symbol first and then your marginal symbol second. It's a little weird that they call it marginal average. I think it's just because it sounds better. But always do it in the order of the symbols. In this case, your average comes first and your marginal is second. It's always going to be like that if it asks you for marginal, average, anything. Okay? So I'm going to erase all of these and work an actual problem to give you an example. She did say that she's not going to give us those formulas, so revenue equals demand times X, or profit equals revenue minus cost. She's not going to give us those. I am going to tell you, I don't think we're going to have it on the test, but I am going to tell you the break-even point that was the easiest for me to remember. The only one I can ever remember is that revenue equals cost. If it asks you for a break-even point, it's going to be revenue equals cost. That's going to be the easiest one because the other two have to equal 0, and that's just way harder than necessary. So, revenue equals cost. You should already have both of those things if it's asking you for that anyway. All right, now we're going to work a problem. So, there we go. The weekly cost of producing X keychains is given by the function. It gives us the function. It tells us to find the marginal average cost function. And this is why I focused so much on the marginal average thing. Okay? So, we're going to write down our cost function first. And we're going to note that it is the cost function. I may not put f of x on our regular problems, but every single time it is one of these marginal analysis ones, put your letters. Does not matter what it is, put your letters that are supposed to be there, or you will forget what you're supposed to even be doing. Because I don't know how many times I got tripped up because I wasn't paying attention to my letters. Okay, so our cost function equals 2,000 plus 29x plus 0.35x squared. Now, I don't normally like these that go out of order and aren't in descending exponent or variable or whatever. But in this case, it doesn't really matter too much. Okay, so when you're finding the average of something, you divide it by x. That's it. That's all you have to do. Divide it by x. So in this case, we would divide this whole thing by x, which will give us 2,000 over x plus 29 plus 0.35x. Notice that this x dropped away. This exponent dropped away because 2 minus 1. And then we gained a divided by x here. That's all it's doing when you're dividing by the whole thing. You can write it out that you divided it by the whole thing, but if you can skip that step, great. Okay, so then we have found our average cost. Okay? So if you want to write this prettier, so that it's a little easier to work with when you do your derivatives. You don't want that x on the bottom. So you want to change that to be 2,000 x to the negative 1, because remember there is an understood 1 there, but when it becomes a negative, it's no longer just understood. Plus 29 plus 0.35x. Okay? So that is our, I'm going to write it for both of these. Both of these are our average cost. That's average cost, but we cannot stop there because it asked us for marginal average cost. So then we just find the derivative. That's it. It's our C prime. In this case, our C with the line over it prime, which I'm not really sure what the line over it's called. But we're going to do it anyway. So in this case, we would say negative 1 times our 2,000, which is going to be negative 2,000. Let me put this in a different color to show you that it's a completely different step. So negative 2,000 x. Negative 1 minus 1 is negative 2. That plus 29 is going to drop away. And this x at the end is going to drop away. So we'd have negative 2,000x to the negative second plus 0.35, and our x would drop away. Okay, now we, again, don't want our those negative exponents at this point, especially considering it's talking about money, basically. So then we would change the order of this to input it. And so it would be 0.35 minus, we would have 2,000, we would put it back over the x, and it would be x squared. And that would be your answer, just like it shows. That's all it's asking for. That seems a lot more complicated than it really is. Once you get the process, it'll be super easy. And hopefully this is helping y'all get the process. There's another one. And it is asking for average cost. So this one's pretty easy because it's only asking you to do one step. It's not asking you to do two. So it says the cost of producing X baskets given by cost function equals 790 plus 1.7x. You divide this by x, and obviously you get 790 over x plus 1.7. That x at the end would divide out, and you would have an x under this. It doesn't ask you to find the derivative or anything, so you can leave that x where it is. Okay? Charge for an order, your setup fee plus your charge per whatever they're selling. And that's going to be your cost function every time. Whatever it costs to create the thing. Okay. In this case, you would just take the derivative. So this 300 would drop away. This x would drop away. A single x would drop away after you multiply. A single x would drop away after you multiply. That's it. It leaves you with this. Okay, this is one with that p equals d of x, okay? So we're going to work this one. So p equals d of x equals 6.20. And in this case, they leave that 0 because it is money. Not to give you an extra number, but because it is regarding money. Minus 0.0005x. And this is the main reason why I do 4 decimal points. Because I saw so many problems with this that I'm going to choose that because it is safest. Okay, and then it also gives us the cost function of 0.0004 x squared plus 5x plus 3750 or 3,750. Okay? It wants us to find the marginal profit. Okay? Not average, just marginal profit. Well, we don't have a profit function, so we have to find the profit function, which means we need our revenue function because profit is revenue minus cost. So our revenue function is just this top demand function times x. So that's going to be profit. Nope, not profit, revenue. See, this is why you got to keep up with your letters. Revenue equals 6.20x minus 0.0005x squared. Okay? Then, in order to find profit, you subtract revenue minus cost. Okay, so revenue minus cost. And I'm just going to put this down below it for the sake of simplicity. So minus 0.0004x squared plus 5x plus 3,750. Okay, so this minus is going to move over to all of them. Okay, so then we have like terms here and here. Okay. So we're going to put those together. And I'm going to put mine in order because I prefer it that way. So negative 0.0005x squared minus 0.0004x squared is going to be a negative 0.0009x squared. Okay? And then 6.20 minus 5 is 1.2. So plus 1.2. And I'm going to leave it with the 0. X minus 3,750. Okay? So now we take our derivative in order to find our marginal profit. This is just our profit. Oops. This is just our profit right here. This whole thing is our profit. So now we have to take the derivative of that to find our marginal profit, and our negative 0.0009 times 2 is going to be negative 0.0018x plus 1.20. And that's what it wants. It does typically want you to swap these. So you'd have 1.20 minus 0.0018x. It doesn't seem to like to have negatives in the front very much. So just so you're aware. But it should be okay regardless. So yeah. If it says a vendor charges X amount for a whatever and then asks for the demand function, whatever price the vendor is charging is the demand function. Price and demand are the same. Cost and demand are not. Whatever it costs the vendor to make it is not the same as price. Price and demand are going to be what the vendor charges you to buy the thing. Okay, we talked about revenue function, we talked about product, and now if a vendor charges a certain amount for a thing and then it asks for the revenue function, revenue, remember, is the price or demand times X. So it would just be the price times X in this case. So let's say 34 is how much they're charging for a shirt. Their revenue function is 34X. if you needed to find marginal profit, but it asks you a certain amount, then you would just plug it into wherever your x's are. And that would be it. And then it would give you a number, and you would, since profit is money, you would round to 2 decimal places if there's anything else. All right, that should be the end of it for 2.4 for marginal analysis. Hopefully that makes sense for y'all.